In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Fry, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbardis, Lizzie Haynes, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome all you lords, ladies and knights, to the Retro Movie Roundtable. Welcome to the show where we watch movies and then talk about them. I'm your host, Russell Guest, and joining me today is my good friend and co-host from deep in the heart of Texas, Mr. Dustin Melbardis. How you doing, sir?
Oh, have you been a good boy this year, Russell?
Pretty good, most of the time. Depending who you ask. Why? Who did you ask?
Well, hold on, let's get all the facts straight here.
I am excited, Dustin, for the bringing in some Christmas spirit. We brought Meredith Robson. How you doing, Meredith?
I'm good. I'm really happy to be here for the Christmas podcast.
Yeah. That's right. It's hard to find people with enough Christmas spirit. A lot of my friends like dark horror movies and dystopian, futuristic, heavy-duty things, and nobody makes room in their heart for a little bit of Christmas cheer. So we got the Christmas barometer going up high.
Yep.
Well, if I remember right, high. Meredith brought the Kung Fu energy last time.
Yes.
She did.
Yes.
And she's brought the 40s noir action for Maltese Falcon. She hits all of those notes because she likes all movies.
That's true. What I really would like is a Kung Fu Christmas comedy. That would be wonderful.
Dustin, this sounds like your thing, man.
It really does.
This needs to go into production now and greenlight this right now.
Yes,
get on
that
Kickstarter.
Would be absolutely wonderful.
How would Santa need Kung Fu to save this Christmas?
We do have something kind of in the works right now. It's not called Violent Night. It might be. It's the guy who plays the sheriff in Stranger Things. He's gotten very popular right now. He's playing a Santa who is like whipping up on some terrorists, I believe.
Oh.
It came out this week. It's going to be a big deal. That might be exactly what we're looking for, although I think it's more like over the top, like cartoonish explosions, fighting. It's not going to be proper Kung Fu, I don't believe.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like what Bill Murray wanted to make in the beginning of Scrooged. He wanted to make a very violent Christmas special for network television, yes.
Oh, you mean in the context of the movie of what that should be.
The movie within the movie.
And we need the Rockettes, and absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so today, though, we are doing a movie full of Christmas spirit, and it's not necessarily what's your favorite or best. What is a movie that makes you feel all warm and fuzzy and nice at Christmas time, Meredith?
Rudolph.
That's a classic.
It is. It's Rankin and Bass, and it's very magical, and it's never really lost its charm. It still gets played all the time. People love it. Yeah.
And Dustin, how about you?
I was actually thinking about last year, and I was looking at A Muppet Christmas Carol, but I realized with this and with Scrooged, really it's kind of dark, the whole movie. It's not until the end that you get any warm and fuzziness. And so I'm going to go with Elf. I did not think I would like that movie. It took me 3 watches to finally get on board. But that one through and through is a great warm and fuzzy one.
It's a good one. And I did what you almost did, and I went back to our last year's one that we did, Muppet Christmas Carol. It gives me all the good feels of the Christmas story, but it does it with the Muppets.
Yes.
So, what's the last movie you saw, though, Meredith?
The last movie I saw was Knives Out, which is funny because it's a murder mystery, but there's something about it that's very cozy and makes you feel very calm and happy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the sequel, Forks Out. And Spoons Out will be the complete
I think there
trilogy.
is a sequel coming. I think so, but there's something about it taking place in a big dark house. And
there is.
It just makes you feel very warm and fuzzy.
Well, it's also when performances are that great, you feel good.
Yep.
When you see something good, you feel good. And they did do a sequel. They should have gone your way, Russell, with Forks Out or Sporks Out, whatever you were saying. It's called Glass Onion. And it had a very limited release, only 1 week in theaters, but it's now on Netflix.
Oh.
Must see.
That's very interesting.
It does have Daniel Craig reprising the detective.
Interesting. And I hope the Blue Raja from Mystery Men's in there, too, with forks and spoons.
Of course, I do not wish that.
Dustin was hard on Mystery Men.
It was hard on.
You can strike that part from the record because it was all rolling along well there. Dustin, what's the last movie you saw?
Well, I wish I could give it a good review, but I just watched a movie with Tim Roth called Sundown. about a gentleman who's on vacation with his sister and his niece and nephew. And they get some bad news back home. And the sister and niece and nephew have to go back. They're all going to go back, but Tim Roth's character forgets his passport. So he's alone in this beautiful sunny paradise without the baggage of family. And he lets go of everything. And so while you might think, oh, this is kind of a fun setup for a romp, it isn't. It's a descent. And so if you're looking for a sundowner, check out Sundown. It's Tim Roth.
I did a movie from 1985, The Black Cauldron, with Grant, man.
Oh,
yeah.
I've seen that, but it's been a long time ago.
It's Disney, but it's a darker Disney movie. It's got a lot of monsters, and it does not feel like a Disney movie at all, actually. So it's heavier and darker than most Disney movies. It's not rated as well, but I had a lot of fun with it, and so did Grant. So that made me have a good time with it.
Yeah,
so.
I think he likes monsters and stuff, doesn't he?
He did. I know, like the main bad dude's got like the skeleton with like deer antlers and like coming out of his heads. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it was a hit. So, but today's movie is what, Dustin?
The Shop Around the Corner from 1940.
1940. I know, we're going back there. Stars the incomparable Jimmy Stewart, Margaret Sullavan, and Frank Morgan. I don't have box office data to know where this fell in the box office. It was profitable, but the number one movie from 1940 was Pinocchio. So, and that's no lie.
Yep.
IMDb gives The Shop Around the Corner an 8.0, but the critics of Rotten Tomatoes give this 100. 100% fresh.
Unbelievable.
An audience score also pretty high up there, 91% fresh.
Yeah. You don't hear that very often.
And the AFI list of passions, a countdown we don't get to as often, lists this one at the number 28 on the best romance movies of all time. High praise here. Meredith, had you seen this one before?
I had seen it before, and it was, over the years around Christmas, you would see bits and pieces of it, during the holidays. So I hadn't seen it all the way through in one go in a while. But yeah, I had seen it before and was aware of it in various parts.
So this is an older movie. How did it strike you? Like, did you just fall into it and you got into it, or was there a growing to like it?
Since I was first exposed to it as a kid, in bits and pieces, I always liked it, but I think I understand it a lot more now. So I actually found it easier to get into now than when I was a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Dustin, how about you? Had you seen The Shop Around the Corner?
Never even heard of it. And I didn't even know that it would be in any way related to Christmas. But I was lucky to be able to hit a couple of buttons and charge $2.99 to my credit card and see, without any advertisements, without any posters, just jump right into it. First time seeing it, no expectations. It's the best way to watch a movie.
Wow, so you went in really cold, other than I hear Jimmy Stewart's in this movie then. Yeah,
I didn't even know he was in it, nor did I know that the Wizard of Oz was in it. I didn't want to learn anything. And I also think it's fun to disassociate his role, his character, from other roles of his. In fact, an even more famous one around Christmas time. You don't have to do that. And maybe we'll talk about it later, but I think the movie helps us do that with its setting. So it was really a brand new story. And I think that's rare.
Oh,
yeah.
I was new to this one as well. We got handed the short list, and this one, I just simply did Christmas classic with Jimmy Stewart, and
it sounds wonderful.
A close call with suicide is involved.
That's
so
good.
And then wait, hold up. It's not It's a Wonderful Life, and yeah, so it has all of those same things, but it is also really fun. And I found this was a warm movie. It feels good. I was surprised
really
this
does.
didn't pop up on the feels good, like the inspirational AFI list. I expected it to pop up on there too, but for an old movie, I actually had kind of what Dustin felt like. It felt refreshing, which is a strange thing to say about a 1940 movie.
It doesn't move slow at all. It's got kind of a good, everything keeps rolling along kind of a pace to it.
It doesn't change scenes a lot. It doesn't move a lot, and it's very dialogue driven. So, but if you like theater,
yeah,
because it's written to be a play, it plays like a play, And I like plays and I like theater,
Yeah.
so that's not much of a stretch for me. So
It might introduce a bias for me, is that if it feels like that for me, it's probably going to fall on the positive side of the scale easier.
okay, so you're a fan of the stage plays as well, then?
You remember from our countdown last year, Carnage, and I had such things to say about that, which can all happen in one room, and it's meant as a 4-person play. So those kind of things can really, really work.
Yes, but there will be spoilers as we talk about it, and we don't want to spoil this one. So for those of you who haven't seen it, we encourage you to see it. It is worth it. 100% of the critics will agree with me. We will be back after these messages.
Welcome to the All 80s Movies Podcast.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Jason. And this is the podcast where we talk about the blockbusters, the flops, and everything in between from one of the freshest decades for movies, the 1980s. So whether you're a brain, a jock, a valley girl, or a Jedi, we've got some 80s classics for you.
Do these movies stand the test of time? Are we discovering something new? Is there an 80s movie we're finally watching for the first time?
Join us each week as we dive into the cinematic nostalgia that inspired and influenced a generation. From the hits to the cult classics, we'll discuss our earliest memories, favorite scenes, fun facts, and our not-so-favorite movie moments, too.
It's the All 80s Movies Podcast, now available on all major streaming platforms. Please subscribe and happy listening.
All right, we're back. And Dustin, for those who haven't seen The Shop Around the Corner since 1940, do you want to refresh people's memories?
We take you to beautiful Budapest outside of Matuszyk's fine leather goods store. Our employees, Kralik, Pirovich, Varash, Flora, Ilona, and Pepi, wait outside for Hugo Matuszczyk to open the door and start a new day at work. Kralik tells Pirovich that he's excited about the recent correspondence he has been mailing to a woman who he had met through the newspaper personals, and he begins fantasizing about someday meeting her. In walks Klara Novak, who needs employment. After showing off her deft salesmanship in front of the boss, she is hired. Over time, we learn that Matuszyk's demeanor has changed as he has learned from an anonymous letter that his wife is having a secret rendezvous with an employee of his, who he incorrectly presumes is his longest tenured employee, Kralik. During this time, though he maintains his friendship with Pirovich, tensions begin to rise between Kralik and Klara, who have never gotten along. We learn that Klara is also involved with a man through correspondence. Both Kralik and Klara have a date on the same night at 8:30 at a local cafe, but they are asked to stay late at the shop to change some window dressing. During this time, Kralik finally confronts Matuszczyk about his attitude downturn, which leads to his firing due to his boss's suspicions about who must be meeting his wife. Matuszczyk ends up letting all the store members leave on time anyway in the aftermath of the firing, and during this time learns that it is actually Varash who is the guilty party, not Kralik. Klara goes to the cafe and waits for her date, while Pirovich talks Kralik into going to his, even after a bad day. Pirovich learns that it is Klara who is waiting for him, and Kralik finally gets wise that he has been falling for his co-worker. He attempts to talk Klara inside, but he is rebuffed. Pepi gets back from a late delivery just in time to stop a forlorn Matuszczyk from killing himself, which leads to a reconciliation between him and Kralik, and a new promotion. The following day, Klara misses work due to being psychologically lovesick, while Kralik antagonizes then fires Varash for his two-timing nature. Aware of his secret admirer's identity, we watch along as he playfully withholds this knowledge from Klara, leading to a slow burn of Will They Won't They through a booming Christmas Eve sale at the shop, after which Matuszczyk delivers Christmas bonuses to everyone, and Kralik reveals his non-bowed legs and love for Klara, who returns his affection in a loving embrace.
Ah, feeling all fuzzy now.
Oh, yes.
Awe is right, Russell. This was an awe-inducing movie.
So I want to start off. This is a workplace romance, and I did a quick search. I didn't come up with anything right away. Meredith, you're also quite versed in some older films. This is the earliest workplace romance that I can think of. I mean, maybe there's one before it, but I mean, it seems to me like this is an early format of it.
I think so. I actually can't think of any right off the bat that are that old. Probably wrong about that. There's got to be one or two out there, but I think this was pretty unique. especially considering that it started out as a play, so it was older than the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
and as a fan of the TV show The Office, I've come to like this interplay of people, their lives, work, all coming together in this intersection. We certainly covered that with broadcast news earlier this year as well. And I think it's just an interesting dynamic to enter in because these people are so evidently in each other's lives so presently. That's an interesting stage for a romance and for calamity to happen and for interesting things to go down.
Then that's something that theater can do too, is a focus on the minutia and the interactions with the people you're around the most. It might not sound as if the decisions of a buyer for a department store and going through the sales pitches of this lovely leather handbag that might not sound interesting to a producer. But when you have working class people that have worked jobs like this, there's something really satisfying about watching a big movie star or just anybody on screen going through the day-to-day stuff that we've all gone through. Gosh, what does Jimmy Stewart say to Clara? It was like, oh God, you let me go through the whole speech, didn't you? Like, there's some stuff there that's reminiscent of young workers or even people that have been in that career for a long time. So I think it's really refreshing. You mentioned The Office. The Office had 1,000 hours to get into those. Here we only had an hour 40. So it still was compelling enough.
Yeah, and it's funny. It reminds me a little bit, actually, of the 40-year-old version with those guys. What did they work at Best Buy or something?
I do like those guys,
It's
too.
a Best Buy style store.
Yeah.
But she has, I would assume, incredible references. She's worked at the nicest stores in town. Why she's hard on her luck is something that she's a bit bashful about. It's something that's hard to bring up, not having a job. It makes you have to realize how lucky you are to have a job. I know it sounds like capitalist jargon, but like having employment is good. And so she was ashamed to really not have it right away.
And she alluded to maybe something happened at her other job, like the what's his name? Sons and brothers or brothers and sons.
The brothers weren't bad. The sons weren't bad, but the brothers, oh my.
Yeah. So she alluded to something that wasn't quite to her satisfaction.
Yes, she did describe a Me Too kind of moment for 1940 of when you go to the back room, you talk about actually...
You really do want to put bags on the shelf.
Bags on the shelves, that's right. So
that's how I describe a gentleman.
Yes. Well, I mean, she was definitely buttering him up at that point to get
that doesn't
somewhere.
mean it wasn't true.
But you're right, it doesn't mean it wasn't true. So one of the things I love about a workplace situation, as Dustin said, you are a confined audience. Other characters start to become very interesting, other than just Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
And Margaret Sullavan. And the other characters matter. I like watching Pepe. I like watching Hugo. I think Ferenc Vadas is this... He's just so slimy. He's designed to hate. I mean, he gets into these little petty arguments. He's just looking to get into an argument, and just the way he dresses.
He's very self-absorbed.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
And other people in the workplace know this, and they either have to make a decision to give him the time of day. Do you want to hear a joke? No, Vadash. No, we don't. And for a second there, I'm thinking, are they portraying Jimmy Stewart's character as having no sense of humor? Or are they just really making you lean into, oh, this guy, everyone knows that guy at work, right? Where you're just, okay, again. Where you really don't want to have that interaction with him. And we do learn that his, we'll say, social villainy goes even further. But he's the only one in that shop that seems to not fit in with the general positive vibe of the store. Is that he's caustic, he's irritating to be around, he dresses differently, and then you see him with a lot of money. You learn about later on that he's the one that is, cavorting with Matushik's wife. So they do nothing to try to redeem him. He's not a redeemable guy.
No, but I mean, that's what makes it an interesting workplace.
Yes.
I mean, you have to have, we like The Office because Stanley's this grumbly, curmudgeon. You have to have somebody to play off of to cause interesting. He causes conflict.
I think this guy is worse.
Oh, yeah. Stanley's a lovable grump. This guy's just, this isn't like Andy Bernard, who's dresses and thinks of himself as, You're right.
He's late season Andy Bernard.
Yeah.
Because Andy gets worse, we know.
Yes, but you are right, though. I mean, like, and it's not just a foil for The Office. I'm not saying everything of this has to be compared to The Office, but I like this, and I quite honestly found this little world so interesting. I could have tuned back in for more episodes for it, like a TV show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that's a very rewarding thing when you fill it out with more than just two people. So the romance is good. It's a good romance story on its own. It's a clever idea. It's very charming to fall in love with somebody's words and their mind without ever having seen them. Today, that's really hard because dating profiles
a picture.
Specifically lead off with a picture. Yeah. And I've been told, like, if you have no picture, you have almost no chance. You will be quickly swiped left on or right, whichever.
I don't know. I don't do that. I don't do the swiping, so I don't.
You will be swiped. I don't know which way, but you will be swiped with no picture. You will not be entertained without a picture. So it's really, really interesting. And another interesting way of looking at it, like I said, it's almost refreshing now of like, wow, that's a way that you really couldn't quite conceivably fall in love anymore. And that's a very romantic sort of way of thinking about it, just with somebody as a person. So much so, it happens to be somebody at work you're not very fond of.
Yeah. And I think that's, it's funny that it's been remade so many times. I think people just want to get more of this.
It's a pretty clever idea.
Yeah.
And what I was afraid that it was going to turn into was, oh, I don't like you. I'm going to be mean to you, but really I like you. That's a dynamic I didn't like. I didn't even like it in junior high watching. You would see like other guys sitting there, I guess, provoking or like just saying mean things to girls, but then they like them. And like, it's like trying to, like, it's a really weird and dysfunctional way of flirting. And I thought we were headed for a whole lot of that. But to my relief, that's not where this movie was going. It was actually seeing beneath a series of missed opportunities to see who a person really is. But it also shows you, sometimes at work, a couple of bad experiences can disconnect you from connecting to somebody at a deeper level. And that had happened in this case.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder, outside of work, are some people who you may have conflicted with at work, are these people who you would be friends with or have completely other different relationships with outside of the confines of work? That's another one that'll send your mind drifting.
Yeah. And we're so often in public almost the opposite of who we really are. It's like they're portraying one thing on the outside world, but their inside world in their letters is totally different.
Yeah, when they're not selling cigar boxes with it play music of Okeechobee on them, like, which is a weird idea, I have to say. Like, but I don't smoke, but maybe I like music, but I wouldn't want to hear the same music box song all the time. But they're connecting at a really, really deep level, so much so they have to backtrack negative associations. Very clever. You said it's been remade. I have not actually seen You've Got Mail from 1998 with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. This movie apparently is the framework for that bookstore, named The Shop Around the Corner. Yep. It's very much in tune with this. Which of these is better in your mind, Meredith? Without spoiling that one too much.
I think the original is better, mainly because the characters in the newer version, the You Got Mail, I found to be very self-centered, kind of like Vodish a little bit. They kind of made them, in my opinion, meaner of heart than they should have been. And it was also a much bigger worldly type of story. Like you had using email instead of letters, and they tried, there was an attempt, I think, to make it kind of edgy that hasn't quite held up as well as the original. Nothing is less romantic than an email, by the way. Yes. Yeah.
But it's gone through a number of Broadway versions as well.
And I think there's a version with Judy Garland.
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure if it was stage also, but there is a stage version.
Yes. It's called Good Old Summertime, or Good Old Summertime from 1949. It's a musical adaptation.
I was unaware that they knew each other or worked together in You Got Mail. I presumed they were strangers.
It was a little bit of a change in that the guy, Tom Hanks, worked for one of these new big bookstore corporations, and Meg Ryan works for a tiny little store.
Oh,
so
they're designed to not like each other.
Yes, they don't work directly side by side like Jimmy Stewart and Margaret Sullavan do.
Okay. Yeah.
They're from two different worlds.
Yeah.
The decision to have them not like each other when they are in each other's presence in the store. Well, I didn't get that right away when she comes in and gets hired, but it just kind of happens off screen. Would you agree that you don't get an immediate serious animosity? What you get is Kralik saying, I don't think he's going to hire you. I'm not trying to get in your way. He just says he's very busy. And she's being aggressive in a good way. Or like, I'll do whatever you need. You just said that you need help. I've got all these great references. There's nothing that like begins giving us clues that they wouldn't like each other. It's through a short passage of time after she's been working there for a little bit that we learn that there's this animosity, and the onus of it does happen off screen. Then we get this bonus, and this is what I meant from like the original story, is that it's such a gift that they don't like each other because they don't like each other, they won't share the things they care about to one another.
Yes.
Only through chance parts of other conversations does it even bring up that she's got a date at the same time, or any of the stuff that's really important for us, the audience, to hinge on that comment. They're not paying that close attention to one another because they kind of detest each other. They don't want to be near each other anymore. We get a chance to see something that's maybe positive, and it, Kralik thinks that it's just a ploy to get out of work early. So like there's a whole bunch of, whether it's coincidence or just, we don't have to see a lot of unpleasantness. We are just very easily told, oh, they don't really like each other. And that way, our eventual surprise, which another good tool, Kralik learns about the identity, and Clara does not. And that's, I feel like these decisions were like, this is the best it could have gone. As I was sitting on my couch watching it, I thought, I don't know if I would have liked that. I think I would have liked them learning at the same time. And then after the resolution of the movie, I said they got it right.
I was with you, Dustin, and I was like, well, boy, you're starting to dig your hole pretty deep because he has
ample opportunity to come clean.
Yeah. Exactly. Like you could be, this could even start to go your way, and then it could turn into one of those typical rom-coms where it's just like, what? You knew? And then I'm going to go on a 10-minute thing where I got to go away and I'm mad. None of this is ever going to work because you lied to me, and we'll do a music sequence and then we'll come back together.
I was kind of expecting something like that where it would be, the response would be outrage and deception, as opposed to how it happened. And this might be the slowest of slow burns, at least for an 82-year-old movie. It's crazy how you are towing the line of keeping the secret too long, but eventually we get there, and it's wonderful.
I have to say that it didn't do what I just described as. I don't know what point in history that becomes what you do in a movie.
I don't know. Yeah.
I'm gonna just guess it's somewhere in the late 90s, early O's. Like this is a thing. Like this is how this movie should go. I'm glad it's not that, which is why I said it's refreshing. It actually feels intelligent. The conflict they have is real. What they have to overcome, their perceptions of this person. Like when she says, "You are not a real man. Like you do not read fine literature." In reality, he does. He's just become so despicable to her. She couldn't imagine him having any redeeming qualities.
Right.
Because they villainized each other. And so that's a very real thing to go through, as opposed to so often a movie will have these easily avoidable miscommunications that a simple I'm sorry would go a long way, and it usually takes some big gesture, like where it involves some kind of big notion and then it leads to some big romantic scene, and then it's all better again, which is, I think, cheapens, the female character for falling for just a big gesture, but also cheapens things for there's something very inauthentic about it. I don't want to knock people who enjoy this kind of thing. It doesn't resonate. This resonates because this could be very real.
And their relationship, it reminded me a little bit of Shrek and Fiona.
Oh, we just covered that. Yeah, that's not very far back for us.
So they're, externally have a very rough time, but it turns out not to be that way in reality.
Yeah. And like I just said, I wanted more episodes of this. Maybe at nighttime they turn into ogres.
Yeah, maybe.
So that would be great.
The swamp around the corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be great.
Madashek sounds like it could be a magical Shrek-like creature, to be honest with you.
Shrek.
Yeah.
Russell, I don't make these jokes unless I'm with you.
I have a question. Old movies, sometimes, I always feel like they're out of film in the can, and they always have to shut down filming quickly. This movie ends abruptly. Mm-hmm. It feels good, and maybe it's just because Lord of the Rings Return of the King has conditioned me to want more endings, but this movie finishes quickly. Mm-hmm. Like, perhaps too quickly. Like I felt like it wrapped up very quickly.
It does, but I actually like the way it ends. I mean, it's not quite the classical happily ever after, but we know that those two characters, even if they're just standing there, with their pant legs up, that they're solid together. Then that's all we need.
Meredith, I completely agree. I didn't need the next day. I didn't need a ring on a finger. I didn't need them showing up to work on Monday morning. We already knew that they're going to work. And subtly, any of the mystery behind, because obviously Clara does not know. It's Kralik that knows. And so it's the mystery there, we actually get some of it eroded, right? We already know the mind and sort of the heart, the poetry is there. 10 minutes before the end of the movie, he actually starts describing someone who is an opposite physical shape than him. And she's doing a great job of showing, like, no, that's not what I want. I don't want a short, stout little businessman. A popkin, I believe, is what they said.
Yeah.
Which is the name of my next horse, Matthias Popkin. So, like, they don't... They take away some of the guesswork because you might be sitting in the seat saying, what if it doesn't work? Mm-hmm. They comfort you and cradle you and say, no, it's gonna. So much so that we're just going to end right after this little embrace. And
I could use this. I could use the time jump though. I could use the 6 more months in the future and just show it all going well. I'm different. I could use the whole.
No, I like the pant legs. I think the pant legs are.
Okay.
It was cute and like surprising. And also, it's something that kids nowadays don't really know what shirt stays are. So they'd be like, "What is he wearing? That funny footwear?" Like there's certain things that are just of a bygone era. Yeah, the way that it ends, I laughed out loud. I actually cheered in this movie, sitting on my couch. I did it for Peppy, and I did it for the ending. And there were so many things that I was like, because what a joy to have never seen this movie, to get to experience it, knowing that you'll want to hang on to a lot of details. And so there were certain things that I thought the ending was nailed. I didn't need any more. If you wanted to give me 15 to 30 seconds of flowers raining down on them walking out of a church, fine. But we didn't even need that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Over under, how many times do you think they said Mr. Matashek in the movies? Or more specifically, Matashek?
80.
80, okay. Meredith?
I think it's more than. I think it's got to be closer to 200.
Okay. Well, under Price is Right rules, Dustin didn't go over, but it's 149.
Oh.
No,
that's
she's
a ton,
closer.
though.
Price is Right rules work for Price is Right, and they don't work for any other number game in the history of the world. So I'm going to give this to Meredith. That's that's a win. That's a good win too.
149.
That's a lot of times.
Well, if you think about it, he's the boss. So you do say your boss's name a lot at work. It's also the name of the company, so you say where you work a lot too. So it's not as outrageous as it feels. So Jimmy Stewart, this is earlier in his career. He is billed second to the Margaret Sullavan on this movie.
Well, I like him a lot. He's not over the top at all. He's very natural, and he's the guy you like compared to everybody else in the movie.
I like his friend.
And he seems, well, yes, I like him, but he seems very upstanding and very loyal and put together and everything. So.
It's easy to trust that he's a good guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's also extremely tall in this cast. I don't know. I think he's a tall guy in general. I just finished doing a couple Burt Lancaster movies, and he's 6'2". I think Jimmy Stewart's maybe taller. And that's tall. I mean, that's 80 years ago tall. But he towers over everyone in this movie, which is kind of fun and leads to a good shot later.
Yeah, and he speaks in a way that he seems intelligent.
6'3".
Yeah.
So yeah, for Jimmy Stewart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he seems sincere. He has only good things on his mind for ambitions. He's trying to plan. He confides in his friend. It does not seem like there's a bone in his body that would really try to double cross in a harmful way. It's seeing a good man or a good person with the information to where now they have a secret to reveal. And we do see some things in this movie that, I'm not going to say they confused me, but it maybe went against his character a little bit. He antagonizes Vadash before firing.
Oh. I would agree with that. That seemed out of character. I figured he would come in very briefly, take no other, I think he would do it in front of everybody and just say, pack up your bags. You're out of here. Right immediately. That seemed like his style.
That didn't bother me. What bothered me was the pushing. I don't think that goes.
That did go far, too.
Yeah, I'm
think not going to give it to you in black and white. I'll give it to you in black and blue.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the 1940s. This is what a man's got to do. He's got to take charge and push him out of the store.
I agree
for me, that seemed out of character for him.
I agree, Meredith. It was out of character. But, I think what we're also getting here is that you've only got a certain amount of time to make something work. We even get a little bit of this from Matushik, where he walks up to the window late in the movie. He's like, "Well, I don't have my glasses. Can you tell me the price?" "Oh, really? That's a great deal." And he's trying to, even in his state, trying to make the sale. Making the sale is an important thing in that lifestyle, whether you work on commissions or not. And so, that's something small. But another thing about the reason I got into this at all is there are things you want to do when you're in a retail situation. Sometimes that has to do with the types of customers you don't want to see. Let's talk about the Lotus Eater from Little Shop. Sometimes it's about the things that you only think about or dream about doing to, let's say, a customer or a coworker. I think it's possible that for this movie, there was what does every store clerk or jewelry salesperson or customer service agent want to do to their coworker? And maybe that's why he goes so far as to physically shove them out, is just to embody that, this is what every hourly retail worker would maybe want to do to this kind of coworker. Just a thought.
Doesn't seem consistent with the character, but I just think it has to do with the time of he's got to show some he's the boss, he's taking control. I'll throw him out kind of thing. It just seems like that's a 1940s
I'm not disagreeing
idea.
With you. It is out of character. We agree with that.
Yeah. What do you think about Jimmy Stewart and Margaret Sullavan? Because their chemistry is pretty big. Is a pretty big deal in this movie, Meredith.
Yeah, I thought they did a great job. I said before, they remind me of Shrek and Fiona. They also remind me a little bit of Han and Leia.
Yeah.
In that there's tension, but they're both genuinely good-hearted. And I think that they had an established friendship before that, so that probably doesn't hurt. They worked together before. Yeah, I think they did a wonderful job and a very realistic job. It was not overdone. It wasn't overly sweetened or anything like that.
Yeah, now I can't get out of my head thinking, hey, now who are you calling Scruffy?
That's good, Russell. I wanted to say that not every antagonistic relationship is really done perfectly. And this one, there's some really biting comments now for the time, but some that even last, 82 years later, some passive aggressive stuff that is really delightful, because I think you started the podcast off with the warm and fuzzy movies. And I'm thinking that even this passive aggressive attitude, we've got an hour left, even some of this back and forth between them, you still always feel like this is going to work. And so because you're leaning that direction already, you can put up with some of the vitriol because it's going to have the payoff, and it does. I think with our more modern movies that usually follow the deception reveal with some type of outburst and anger, I think that has now become sour. And so it's really pleasant to see when the reveal just comes with a nice wrap up with a bow.
Mm-hmm. Is Margaret Sullavan too mean? I found myself wondering at times. But maybe this is what you're getting at, Dustin. No, is what you're saying.
I don't think she's too mean. I think she has, or the character has, quite a bit of a guard up in her working life, in her public life, that she does not have when she corresponds in these letters. I think that's part of it. I think she's, shoring it up so she doesn't get hurt too bad.
I think I'm very defensive of Jimmy Stewart because I've come to like him through It's a Wonderful Life and through other things. So I find myself just sitting there going hey, don't talk to Jimmy Stewart that way.
Yeah.
In reality, there's sort of an aura of politeness about it that regardless of what anybody else says, I actually think you're a gentleman. There's the subtle ways to insult.
Yeah.
The harm isn't that deep, especially since us in the lucky seats in the audience know that one of the actors involved, one of the people in the couple can really handle a lot being thrown his way because he's already, we have to assume he's already in love. We're not questioning his side once we've got 30 minutes left in the movie.
Yeah, because he wouldn't bother.
He wouldn't bother. He wouldn't continue pursuing if he didn't already fall in love.
You're right. He didn't wad up the paper and be like, ugh. Oh, man. And then move on.
Yeah. And sometimes, depending on who the actors are, you have Pirovich say I've always thought she's attractive. Sometimes in movies they give you dialogue or they give you a side eye as the hottie walks by the pool. And you have to be reminded.
They don't present her that way.
No.
You have to be reminded this is an attractive person. Because the same thing is also true. Is sometimes you have an A-list beautiful Hollywood actor who is portraying someone that in the movie is not attractive. So sometimes dialogue and description does that there. And Pirovich does that for her. Didn't you always say, or wouldn't you agree that she has a shape or a figure or a pretty face? And very late in the movie, it is Clara who says, very early on, even though we didn't get along, I found myself falling for you. They do a lot of things that they're not subtle. They're just in your face of this is gonna work. we have the mutual attraction already. So it's a safe place to come from.
So as you both mentioned, Jimmy Stewart and Margaret Sullavan had worked together. Margaret Sullavan was not always, she in real life has a quick temper and apparently a bit of a disdainful attitude towards Hollywood people. And Jimmy Stewart, was, he said nice things. He said working with her was one of the great joys of his professional career. He knew her personally and he was, just equipped to deal with, I guess, quite honestly, volatile emotional outbursts.
He kept the peace, I think.
Yeah. He does seem like a very calming dude. Maybe it's not off screen, but it just his on-screen persona is just something I've come to like him very much with. But how do you like this? They were both in a summer stock company called the University Players, and Stewart was realized as a potential actor. Sullavan had already made it and he was following in her footsteps. And Henry Fonda, who was in 12 Angry Men, which we covered last year, was also there, and one of the players followed footsteps of these two to go to New York and begin his acting career. All three of these guys were in an acting company together, Fonda, Stewart, and Sullavan. It's crazy. It's impressive.
Yeah. It still happens too. Is you have fantastic actors who went to high school together and just decided to work on a project together. I think about our sort of our improv. Whether it's the Groundlings or UCB for a ton of wonderful comedians right now.
Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. And it's always kind of neat to see when SNL brings someone on. I think maybe 3 players over the last 5 years, I had recognized their comedy work from before SNL, which is wild because it means that some of these other smaller groups where all these great actors have gotten their start are getting recognition, and it kind of broadens your scope as to what you might like. So it's cool that there are, aside from officially making it in Hollywood or officially making it on Broadway, that there are other places that success kind of breeds and brews.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Second City being another one.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Second City, I think, is the Amy Poehler and
Tina Fey. Even farther back, I believe a lot of the original cast people. Bill Murray, Aykroyd, and
was it Lisa? No, Lisa Kudrow was with the Groundlings, maybe.
perhaps.
Yeah.
It's a deep pool to get into, and so is the Groundlings.
And Conan O'Brien took an acting class together when they first got to LA. And,
oh my goodness!
And they neither of them had any renown, and they became friends there at this like cheap acting class.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know how much of it Sullavan got big and then brought her friends along with her in the business and its association by moving up. But I actually also want to ask, how much of it do you think is greatness shapes other great people around you? If you're really good, it makes other people form together, and you all collectively elevate your game together where you're playing the game at a very high level. I think that works in real life too. Like if you get somebody who's really good at their job and has been around a lot of people who do it really well and they have lots of good ideas and they're very exciting to be around. And as that person might move off into their career and do great things, you're like, how did this person do it? Well, it came out of growing around, being around good people.
Oh, yeah. I think that's absolutely true.
I have to interject this. I didn't think I would, but the Vadash character is someone that you don't like.
But I do like him as an actor, though.
Sure.
Like he does a great job of playing this despicable
character. I said the
character.
Vadash character, Russell.
You did. Sorry, I'm on actors.
I had a Vadash that I worked with. I called him a dweeb. This guy we both had a different set of polish on us. I was kind of a mountain man. He was kind of a New York butler type. We both did the same job, and we did it so different ways, and I just didn't like this guy. And now I consider him my closest peer in my field because we started working together and we shaped each other. Mm-hmm. Part of it was that he was actually, I think, like 6 years younger than me, too. And I was just like, this, like, he's not even a hotshot. He's a hot dweeb. This little dweeb, and people would like joke about him and his ways, and I used to be in on it. And then I was like, this guy really actually is admirable in a way. Now, in that sense, there's no Vadash there at all. But it's just another way that like the workplace or this movie reminds you of your own workplace experience. Like, I'm not going to say that I redeemed Vadash, but it was us working together that we shaped each other into better workers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing that we talked about, should he have thrown him out right away or whatever, Vadash becomes truly dislikable when Jimmy Stewart takes over and becomes manager.
It shows a lot more.
Yeah, he's not just an opinionated guy who dresses a certain way and we feel a little bit sorry for him because he just doesn't fit in necessarily. He's totally brown-nosing and just being a total yes man, having no spine, just angling for position when he's sucking up to Kralik. Like when Kralik becomes the manager and he's just like, I've always thought a lot of you or whatever. And just
you know it's baloney.
Oh, he lays it on so thick. So without that, you can't as a viewer totally. And yes, he obviously slept with Mrs. Matashek.
Russell, I was waiting for you to get to that point because it is before that we learn, he's the one that's sleeping with the boss's wife. And
which we never see her.
I believe stealing from them as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it either sounded like that or like he was weaseling money out of her.
You don't see him do that with Mrs. Matashek. You don't see him stealing money. So this is where you as an audience have to
draw your own conclusions.
Just say, you know what? I know all that other stuff you did, but now I see it. You're not a nice guy.
And that's even what Peppy says on the phone. Draw your own conclusions.
Draw your own conclusions. And he walks coolly away. Capping off the finest 5 minutes of the movie, Peppy goes on an absolute tear in this movie. And I don't want to take too much time talking about it now because I'm going to talk about it.
So James Stewart did get flustered working with Margaret Sullavan. One day it said it took him 48 takes to get a scene right. And Stewart said that they were in a little restaurant and they had a line, I will come out to the street and I will roll up my trousers up to my knees. And for some reason, I just couldn't say it. And she would get mad at me and she would be furious and say, this is absolutely ridiculous. And I was standing with my trousers rolled up to my knees. And apparently Jimmy Stewart said he was actually very self-conscious about his skinny legs. And I said, I don't want to act today. And I got frustrated. Get a fellow with some decent legs over here and get some stunt legs in here. And Margaret said, then I absolutely refused to do the picture. So they just kept doing more and more takes. Margaret Sullavan sounds like she was a colorful personality to be working with.
I think she was tough in real life.
Yeah. So it comes through in the character, to be for sure. So Ernst Lubitsch tells a very heartwarming story here, and he makes all these very wonderful characters come to that. This is based on a Hungarian play called Parfumery by Mikos Laszlo, and he's bringing all these characters to life, and he's doing it. He's being funny. He's doing romance. He's doing tension. He's doing so many things at once, and he's adapting somebody else's work. What is the magic that Lubitsch is doing here so well?
Well, I think he did a great job of sort of visually paring it down and making it very character focused. You know, most of his other movies, most of them were very big and elaborate and dramatic, and they're visually dramatic for drama's sake. And this is not that. You know, everything else in the movie sort of takes a back seat, and it lets the characters be the focus and be the star. I think one thing that was very interesting is that there was another screenwriter on this, Samson Ralphson. He did a movie called Suspicion. And I thought it was interesting that these characters, even though it's a comedy, there is an element of their internal story that we see pretty well. And I thought it was very interesting that this came from the guy who did Suspicion.
Suspicion, which there's a character who's very much not what he seems.
Yeah.
And that one, it's interesting. This is not so sinister as that, but I mean...
so I think it was interesting that the director brought on this other guy for this movie.
It's an interesting choice, though, to write for characters who are not what they seem.
Yeah, I think that was a very interesting choice and probably very deliberate.
I think getting the right notes of balancing the comedy with the warmth and the feels, there's something that seems very authentic. Watching Jimmy Stewart have these side conversations with...
Pirovich?
Yes. Watching him have conversations with Pirovich's character... There's this dynamic of this is a real person. Watching them respond to each other.
And they sort of look up to each other.
Yeah. It's through these conversations, and like you said, it's smallness, a series of one-on-one conversations, usually. They're not group conversations. And what you can do to develop these characters and moving this all forward, and it's just very, very good. Using one-on-one sequences.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and that's very theater-like, too. Kralik and Pirovich do seem like buds and of different generations. Pirovich, a married man with 2 kids, and that is something that Kralik sort of aspires to. And there are some... I think Pirovich originally, when I started watching the movie, I thought, this guy's going to run away with my best supporting actor. And then you see some other performances that kind of level keeps upping. We don't have our best scenes early. Everything that you think is going to be the top of the mountain, we just get new stuff on top, and it's all great. And you don't get tired of it. You don't feel as if you're just it's knockout punch after knockout punch. It does build gracefully.
It is. It does subscribe to the Dustin formula for success. It's short. The movie is not long. Dustin likes his 90-minute efforts.
Oh, and Ernst Lubitsch, his family owned a shop or a tailor or something, so he was personally invested, I think.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, and Ernst said that this is the best movie that he had made. He said it's a meaningful tribute to the owner and the employees of the Long Varnish store in Berlin, of the clothing firm of South Lubitsch.
Yeah, so I guess that was his family.
Of S. Lubitsch, yeah. So he comes from this world, and I feel like he as a director brings that. And like you just got done, Dustin, of saying like, hey, have you worked retail? Well, this is what it's like. And you design people, you don't really know what it's like. And you're right.
He probably did.
But he did. Yeah. So there's authenticity that enters into that. So that probably contributes largely to have a voice in it, as opposed to he's not just some Hollywood director coming in and saying like, let me tell you what these small town people like. So
can I tell you, there's something so odd happening during this podcast, which is that generally I don't laud capitalism, and generally, overarchingly, I am not a you have to have done it to understand it kind of guy. In fact, I hate that mindset. I only brought it up because there is something really charming about seeing a famous movie actor do a job, and it's being focused on like the parts of the job, and on top of it, little tactics that are used, whether it's behind the scenes, like with the buying. Everybody knows to get out of Matuszyk's way when he asks, "I want your honest opinion," and Pirovich runs away.
Yeah, he goes back up the steps.
It's learning the tendencies of your boss.
Funnier though.
It's learning the tendencies. I mean, and Clara does it too. Is Matuszych starts asking about something else, and she immediately essentially dives into a jewelry cabinet because if you look busy, you're not going to get asked to do anything. these are just sort of like the rules of workplaces like that sometimes. And I got to say, it was so refreshing to have something that was fun to watch like this, as opposed to, I know that some servers love this movie. I can't stand the movie waiting. I think that
Chad will fight you now, but it'll be later. He's not on.
You should tell him not to do that for his own sake. But the fact is, like, that movie resonates with servers, and movies about like blue collar workers you normally don't see this style of work as a focus. A lot of times you do see blue collar work or like hard work, hard labor. It was just something kind of special.
At the film's 1940 premiere at Radio City Hall, Lubitsch remarked, "I have known just such a little shop in Budapest. Feeling between the boss and those who work for him is pretty much the same in lots of places. It is to me, everyone is afraid of losing their job. Everyone knows how little human worries affect their jobs. If the boss has a touch of, better be careful not to step on the toes of when things have gone wrong or well with him, the whole staff reflects his good humor." Mm-hmm. And so what you just described, Dustin, that interchange between the boss and the staff there, he understood that.
Can I just say there's something really wonderful about how we learn, and it's late, but we learn that Matuszek is generally an affable, great person to work for. Mm-hmm. And that what was going on was a personal issue. He's losing a 22-year marriage. And it's very clear. And at first I thought, because with no expectations going into this movie, I mean, what's going on here? It seemed like they were on their way towards partnership. Even this guy, Purovich, was saying, like, do you think he's going to make you partner? Oh, I don't know about that, but it's kind of heading that way. Is that there's something has happened and you don't know what it is. And I think because a lot of people have had hashtag 2011 horrible bosses in their life, that because of that, they're thinking, oh no, this guy just must be a bad boss, because we've all had bad bosses. And then what you realize is that no, his personal life is interfering with his work life, and that happens too. And it does wrap up happily, like with a great ending, thanks to Pepe coming in right place, right time. I saw, and it was through a wonderful bit of acting from our great Wizard of Oz, Frank Morgan. I saw the despair in his eyes. I saw where the lengths he was willing to go before that happened. I was expecting to see a noose and a hanging. Instead, what we heard was a gunshot. That it was only 10 minutes, maybe even 5 minutes of just like, oh, we're heading down that road. And oh no, is this going to be another Christmas movie that actually has quite a bit of bummer in it before we get to the warm and fuzzies? And no, he's saved. And this is all within like a period of 24 hours. Once Clara's been working there for a while, this is all in a short amount of time. Once again, another great thing for theater. So this is where like we could see more tragedy. For it not to be that, for us to see a good response from our boss character, and it's loving, and the bonus checks are real, and it's not a subscription to a Turkey of the Month Club or whatever Christmas Vacation was.
Jam.
Thank you.
It's the gift that keeps on giving, Clark.
Yeah. And they even referenced the bonuses earlier with a great joke. Kralik says to Purovich, you ever got a bonus before? And he looks like into the distance. Yes. Once.
Yeah. Like it was a long time ago. Yeah.
I've worked somewhere and I loved it there, but I know what you're talking about.
Open it, you're a millionaire.
Yeah. Once.
Absolutely wonderful. So,
that is very
some
funny.
Of that stuff feels very real.
All the scenes were shot in sequence, and they did it in 21 days.
That's amazing. That's very short.
It's very short. So Ernst Lubitsch runs a tight ship just in terms of how he's running it. So
I would think it would be helpful, especially for a movie like this, to shoot it in order.
I feel like as we've studied older movies, you see it a little bit more. John Huston was big on doing that, I think, in Maltese Falcon. And I think you're right. The emotional ride of, and granted, it takes 21 days to go through 2 hours of emotion, but it's still the evolution that the characters go through. I'm with you. I think that seems like it would be a benefit. Easy to do when you're not changing locations also. Mr. Matuszek's office and calendar on the wall suggest that it's 1939, as I mentioned. So the play was written in 37 from Parfumi, and it was written in a more tranquil period.
This movie could happen in a vacuum.
I will admit, because the actors aren't very Hungarian in terms of their appearance.
It could be Chicago. It could be...
I was going to say I felt like I was in New York or Chicago or Philadelphia.
But I did want to say this, and the decision was to keep it in Budapest and to keep everyone with these names that are regionally specific and to use it might sound insensitive, but it almost sounds like a fictional currency. Panga. Pango.
Yeah.
And so we have certain things cost $2.95, but it's not $2.95. It's $2.95. So there's something also kind of fun about that, which is that because you're dealing with a currency that you're unfamiliar with, you don't have to think about like inflation or think about how cheap things are.
The particulars, yeah.
You can just, thank you. The particulars could get in your way. Instead, it's, this just kind of makes sense. And there's some other stuff too that is actually kind of surprising. Immediately upon being fired, he is handed, here's your month's salary in Pangos. And here is a letter of recommendation I've already written for you. Please sign this receipt that you've received your severance. Thank you very much. All very much like that's of a bygone era. So like it's cool to think of this situation of the time period and deciding to keep it in Budapest when really this story could be appropriate anywhere in the world.
That's what I was going to ask, Meredith. Yeah. Why do you think why not put it in America? At this point in time, we have very American actors who want American things, and they don't really want to go over that, and they don't make it a travelogue. You don't see, like when we did Roman Holiday, William Wyler went over and shot Rome very beautifully and like on location. This is in Culver City.
Well, I think it's a very grounded movie, but that might have been an opportunity to put a little bit of fantasy on it for the American audience.
That's a good point.
They're not hung up on it being, say, Chicago versus New York. They're just, it's this city, it's this store, it's these people.
And it's a wonderful love story for just these people. Because going to it could be in France, a meeting at the cafe. But the snow seemed very real, right? It's a place.
Oh, yeah, the snow was beautiful.
Yeah, so it's like, it needs to be a place where it snows. I love what they did with the Grand Budapest Hotel. Mm-hmm. Where things are more fictionalized and the places that they go are fictionalized. That can work too, but this just seemed right.
It releases you from your personal hang-ups, I think.
It is very universal. I just found myself wondering if because of its universality, why not just import it to where these people look like they belong? Because Jimmy Stewart doesn't look like he's Hungarian.
It'd be easier for us to talk about it if their names were Smith and Jones and Brown instead of Novak and Kralik and Matuszek and Vadas.
And Pepe. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I am struggling with these names.
It makes it memorable, though. I mean, Yeah. What's that movie with Matichek?
Yeah. It's funny. It does go to show you, like, this wouldn't be done today. In fact, it's very frowned on today to take American actors into. Why not? You go get Hungarian, descent people. So, but this is just a time period where that was done. They didn't change it. I guess it's just out of reverence to the source material.
I'm happy that they kept
it. Yeah.
Music. The opening music, Leo roars. There's a few first bars of a famous old Russian song, Dark Eyes, which has become synonymous with the Hungarian gypsy culture over the years. It would be a focal point to tune music boxes and sold in the shop of the film. So other than that, I didn't necessarily get bowled over by the music. Did you?
Not really. I think it added a little bit of magical sprinkle to some things. There seemed to be, like you were saying, a little bit of gypsy influence on it. Mm-hmm. But I didn't think that it really was overpowering to the movie at all.
Like The Third Man, which was shot on location, so going back to immersing yourself, the music there felt like it was transporting it. Yeah. I did not feel transported.
No, it blends in, but it doesn't take away from anything.
Yeah. Dustin, how about you? What's the music do for you?
I kind of wish, I want to see the musical version of this now. Because I'd like to see how music could fold into this and elevate it. I'm like you. You said you weren't bowled over by it. I didn't even notice it. I think I was more focused on these the small interactions between these people and them being so lovely. Aside from that folk song that opens when the music boxes open, especially when they all crash open after he pushes Vadash, they're all scrambling to close it. I didn't feel like this movie needed it, and that's a weird thing for me to say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to also say one step further that it breaks my rule. I normally think when you have a Christmas movie, the music's going to play a part of your feel-goodness. Just like when you do a horror movie, music's really important to set the mood. I usually consider if you're going to do this, you need some kind of music in there to warm the situation. Last year we covered Muppet Christmas Carol, and it just sends all those tingles up with all the warm. The music can carry you so far, but it's amazing what this movie does without that.
Yeah, the actors do it.
Yeah,
and I would say if someone were to say, "Do you want to watch a Jimmy Stewart Christmas movie?" I think I might suggest this one first.
Well, if you just like to be clever and surprise people, not disappoint people, because you're not going to disappoint them.
It is more modern, I think, than The Wonderful Life.
Gosh, they're just both so good. I mean, you're splitting. I think they're so. Neither of them are wildly long, so it's
just watch both.
A double dose of Jimmy Stewart in Holiday's time. Yeah, so I'm okay with both. Stuff those stockings with Jimmy Stewart. All right, how about we get out some superlatives? You guys ready?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
MVP Meredith.
Margaret Sullavan.
Margaret Sullavan. Okay.
Yeah, she's so unique. I haven't seen her in anything other than this, but I've never seen anyone like her. So
she has presence.
Yes, she really does.
And it's the season for presence.
Yes,
she's first built and she holds her own, like in all the dialogue.
Oh yeah.
So 1940s movie. That's hard to do for a woman in Hollywood, and she did it.
Yeah,
and she held it too. We're back. All right, Dustin, MVP.
Frank Morgan as Hugo Matashik. I found this surprising as my choice, but I feel like it is his issues outside the store and inside the store that drive us towards the smaller conflicts and some of the things. Like it is through his character that we get to the promotions, and we get to Vadash being a bad guy. We get a lot of that, and it's not the main story. I think is the love story, and that's great. But his acting performance when he's, I think when you see him as the Wizard of Oz first, you expect a certain kind of performance, but he showed a lot of range here. And I thought that was really refreshing and cool to see him in that role. And it's always nice when the boss ends up being a good guy.
I think you should have just said, why? Because. That's
pretty good.
The MVP for me is going to be Jimmy Stewart. I think there's some degree of linking his performance here to other great performances that I cannot separate. In the same way that
probably MVP of a lot of things.
So it's to me, it's just like more snow accumulating on the already piled up blizzard of awesome performances that are Jimmy Stewart. So at Christmas time, so I'm going to go Jimmy Stewart. He is the great quote unquote everyman.
He is.
So best supporting actor, Meredith.
Felix Bressart.
And he is
Pirovich.
He's good.
I thought he was delightful. He had such a sense of humor when he was speaking to Kralik. Like when they were talking about how to pay for things, and Pirovich said, "Get a big kitchen. Get a nice big kitchen."
Where do you entertain?
Yeah.
It's like,
who are you entertaining? Are you an ambassador?
Yeah.
You don't want guests anyway.
Yeah. I loved his approach to those conversations.
Yeah, he was great. Dustin, best supporting actor.
It makes you wish that you have like an Uncle Pirovich because you want to be around that person. So check it out. I put him down as my best supporting early, and then another performance bumped him into. I'm literally keeping Pirovich as my hidden gem, specifically for how he runs away from the boss whenever he starts asking for an honest opinion. But honestly, like my best supporting, he was beaten out by William Tracy as Pepe.
Yeah,
he's good.
He has just an absolutely fantastic 2-minute sequence when Jimmy Stewart's character gets the you're going to be the new manager. He opens the door. Pepe's first thing he says is congratulations. Why? Because off screen, that this little scamp was listening through the door.
Yep.
Probably shouldn't have been. On top of that, his character changed into Pepe the clerk. Absolutely unbelievable. And his treatment of Rudy, the new delivery boy, his new outfit, and he takes the call from Mrs. Matachit. It is that's where I cheered. I could not believe it. So he got, I'm surprised I didn't give him my MVP. He was
William
awesome.
Tracy, right?
Mm-hmm.
William Tracy.
Yeah, he's good. And he's playing age down, too. Like, he's obviously older than the age he's playing, but because he's short and Jimmy Stewart's tall,
I particularly liked his feminine voice on the telephone.
Oh, yeah, that was very funny.
This is Flora, or whoever he says. Hey, you want to be a clerk? I wouldn't put it that brutal.
Hey, remember that time I saved your life?
Yep.
Only saved your life. But it was only the one time that I saved your life. So... my best supporting actor is going to be Joseph Schildkraut. He plays Ferenc Vadis.
Mm-hmm.
Ferenc Vadis. So he's just so slimy.
Mm-hmm.
He's such a good villain. Like, I think I could easily see wanting to cast him for other kinds of villains based on this. He's so good at playing the dapper, spiffed up, thinks he's better than everybody and craves the materialistic side of him. And that drives him. So good villain. Best hidden gem.
I think it's the obvious character flaws of everybody. Most people in this movie, they're good people, but nobody's perfect, and everybody makes like a slip up at some point. And I thought that made the movie, more realistic than you would expect for this kind of movie.
Dustin, hidden gem.
Pirovich got enough love that I'm actually going to go with my alternate hidden gem, which is the waiter in the cafe when she's still waiting for her guy with the help me with the flower here.
Carnation.
What was the
Carnations, yes.
Yeah. Thank you, the red carnation. And he mentions something that like, hey, if we close the cafe and he's not here, I'll wear a red carnation for you. And I think he's describing a similar situation that happened 3 weeks ago with was it begonias?
Gardenias.
Gardenias.
Yeah. Thank you. And the reason I remembered gardenias was because that is the flower that the guy wants to eat in the original Little Shop of Horrors. Oh. His wife is making gardenias.
Salting them up.
Yeah.
So, I thought that was a lovely little hidden spot.
My hidden gem, and I almost always pick a person, but because of the tight, small cast, nobody's really that hidden in this cast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a couple of really ancillary characters coming in, but cigar bosses. They just kind of become this thing that, like...
They're their own character.
Yeah, it becomes a point of contention between them. Like, I mean, all of them falling on the floor and playing is so fitting for where this thing builds up to. Of like, I like this thing if the boss says, I think I'm going to get a bunch of these. And Jimmy Stewart's like, I think it's a dumb idea.
Yeah.
and the boss is like, I think this is really great, right, everybody? And everyone's like, yeah, it's really great. And I really thought there was humor in Jimmy Stewart sticking to his guns. I'm like, it's terrible.
Yep.
So...
Well, and leave it to Clara to come up with a way to lie.
Yeah,
and
the candy box.
This is actually, you know how it is with chocolate. We might want a little bit too much. This is actually going to dissuade you from eating more. I'll take it.
So, recast. If you had to recast somebody and put somebody else in their place, who would it be? Meredith.
I think everybody's truly perfect in this, so I would not recast anybody. What I might do is find somebody to show... the back of the head or the profile or the shoulder or something of Mrs. Matichek.
I know what you're going to say. Yes.
Interesting.
Like, maybe she gets into a cab or something and we just see her for a little bit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, Dustin, recast.
I don't love this. I'm going to go with Groucho Marx as Pirovich.
He's always funny.
Yeah.
Why not? He's got the mustache to do it, sure.
They look exactly alike. It made me think, did they
now I want a Marx Brothers movie where they're working in a shop. This is another movie, but now I can't not recast somebody as Harpo in this store. So thank you, Dustin.
Right.
I mean,
yeah. So that's it.
You know what? That's mine. That's mine too. Harpo's now being recast into this with you, Dustin. I like that better. I really struggled with this. I initially wrote down could Ingrid Bergman do what Margaret Sullavan was doing in here?
I think she's too nice.
Too nice?
Yeah.
Okay. I had a hard time with this. So Harpo Marx it is.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I could see him making Vadis very frustrated by honking his horn around him, and frustrating him and messing his hair up, taking a comb out of his giant trench coat and combing his hair the wrong way and saying, "Stop that!" Best shot of the movie, Meredith.
So I'm actually not going to pick the obvious one, but there is a shot when Pirovich opens the door to the office with Kralik in there, and he swings it open. He's sort of on an extreme angle. He's leaning, and he says, "You're getting the wallet," or something like that. And that shot just looks so much like, a comic strip, or the way they set up sitcoms today. Yeah. He reminded me of Kramer.
Yes.
And it was so quick, but it just was great.
That was good.
Yeah.
Dustin, the shot.
His setup for that was perfect too. Pirovich needs a lot of credit. Mine is actually, and I actually have it written down here, I changed my mind as the movie kept going because they kept giving me great shots and great scenes. It is when Jimmy Stewart is kind of peeking in the window when Clara is anxious about waiting in the cafe.
Mm-hmm.
It's only because of his height that you can get it. But it's in this moment that I'm thinking, and the audience must be thinking when this is shown 82 years ago, go in there, stupid. Go in and talk to her. And it takes a little bit. And it's because of that tension, a wonderful tease. And then he goes in. And that doesn't work out as well as you would hope that it does, at least upon first watching. And then you realize it works out exactly how it's supposed to. So it was great.
Is my best shot the obvious one where Margaret Sullavan is looking into the mail slot?
The close-up.
Actually, no, but you can pick that.
That is that's my pick. What would be more obvious?
What's the obvious one?
Jimmy Stewart's legs.
Oh, well.
At the end of the movie.
Okay, yes. Yeah. Or are they stunt legs? We don't know.
We do not know.
They must be, otherwise Margaret Sullavan would have walked right off the stage. Although that was funny. Jimmy Stewart's actually conscious about his stop making fun of my sheds. Best scene, Meredith.
So I will actually pick that for the best scene, the ending, where everything gets wrapped up and he pulls up the trousers and that's it. He's not bow-legged.
It's a good one.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Dustin.
My best scene is when Hugo is telling everyone about what he asks from them. He hires 6 of these people to work in his store, even though the store next door is double the size and has only 4 employees. And he's trying to get people to understand his role as the owner and manager. He gets interrupted by a shopper, and then he gets interrupted by a phone call, and it's a bad phone call. I think it's the private investigator telling him something, or no, sorry, it's his wife asking for more money. So he shows it's all in one shot too, but it shows that he has to carry a lot of different burdens at once. He's also not recognizing that he's been in a sour mood. He's trying to get emotion out, and he's restricted by the subordinate manager role. And I felt that baggage that he's carrying. Yeah. And I thought, I didn't expect to see this range. And so I thought that was really cool.
Mine's going to be a feel-good moment. Matashek coming to his shop and seeing that his protege, Kralik's, doing so well. The shop's doing well. And it's not his watchful eye that's doing it. It's a moment of great joy for his employees, but also pride that, he's kind of moving into that grandfatherly role of, this is my shop and I'm so proud of you guys for doing this. And you seem to be doing even better than it was even when I was here in some ways. And what pride that must give somebody to see the people you trained and fostered and selected are taking what you had to the next level. So that just kind of was one of the most feel-good moments. That's not even necessarily the romance part of it, but Matashek's happiness, I guess it's the Christmas spirits in full effect there. And sure enough, he has to take the new page, Henry, out to a giant dinner.
He gave him too much cash, apparently.
Best wardrobe or makeup moment. I have a feeling this could be some leg wear here.
Actually, no. My favorite wardrobe moment was Pepe's suit when we see him for the first time post the gunshot into the lamp, and he's wearing this suit, and you think, what is this suit he's wearing? It's very
formal.
Yeah, very formal.
He does undergo big change. That's a great choice. Is this yours, Dustin? Because you like Pepe.
No, it's Vidash's paper hat. I thought it was kind of an interesting, fun thing to see him come in with almost like that barbershop style suit that he was wearing. You don't know he's unlikable yet, but you do know that he's got this particular, potentially grotesque panache. And I think that's really helpful for us as an audience. including with all of his jackets, he still wears sort of a tuxedo-style pointed collar with either a regular tie or a bow tie. Like those are decisions. It's like I remember when I first started buying my own dress shirts, I used to buy French cuff only to show off my cheap cufflinks. And I'm like, there was no reason I needed to do that. It was just a decision that I made, and I eventually quit doing it. But like this guy makes the decision to dress this way, and it shows us like, oh, he's this kind of guy. So it worked. Unless
your cufflinks are explosive cufflinks like James Bond happens, in which case that's awesome. Just to leave a room, drop them on the floor, smoke. Psh.
Yep.
Yeah, mine are magnets so that I can jump in if I lose grip of like a bar that I'm holding onto. Then my cufflinks will catch.
Absolutely.
But they are in the shape of cartoon magnets. I do look like Wile E. Coyote when I'm doing it.
I'm also going to go with William Tracy, but not just his suit. It's the juxtaposition, how they younged him down, which is actually a tough job because he's visibly not like
17.
Yeah. And so
sideways cabbie hat works.
Exactly. That's the cabbie hat. It's the way they fit his clothes tightly and stuff like that, and but then baggy in other places to young him up. And it's a tall order for a wardrobe person to do it. And I normally would be very disapproving of this. I complain about getting 28-year-olds to play teenagers constantly, but William Tracy's pretty good. So I can't complain. Change one thing, Meredith.
The pushing scene. I just don't think that's necessary.
Man, I think that's even better than I wrote. This is You're right. We talked about that. Dustin, how about you? What's your change one thing?
Same thing.
I think you touched on something that I wrote down. I want to see Mrs. Matashek. I would like to either have Jimmy Stewart meet her as he delivers something to her one time. Maybe she's a little bit younger than him or something like that, to the point where, yeah, okay, we know where this is going, but still you really hurt him. And he really did like you. And, I think you will only feel for Matashek more.
Yeah.
If you
see her, yeah.
A visual can help you if you're meant to dislike someone. A visual can help you like, but it can also help you dislike, like Cruella de Vil, evil Ministry of Magic woman from Harry Potter. Like a look can help you make that decision, and I think that could easily be done to be like, that is, in the end, it's just a character that makes our boss sad.
Yeah, and you don't have to put like Ava Gardner, Rita Hayworth, or Marilyn Monroe in there.
It's just a moment.
Yeah.
Just a woman who's younger, who might be moderately attractive to the point where like he's older, and just that's it. You don't have to go overboard. So, best quote. That's a tough one.
Oh, so this is a Margaret Sullavan quote. Psychologically, I'm all mixed up, but personally, I don't feel bad at all. Right at the end of the movie when everything is out there.
Yeah. Dustin, how about you? Best quote.
Although I am the victim of your remark, I can't help admiring the exquisite way of expressing yourself. You certainly know how to put a man in his place.
That's a good line.
Yep.
That's a good line. I like when after Miss Novak sells one of the musical cigarette boxes, well, what do you say now? And then Alfred Kralix just gets up. He's like, I think people who like to smoke candy and listen to cigarettes will love it.
Yeah.
I wish I could show you my screen. That was written down as well. It was an alternate for me.
And this is a no-name customer, but I love it when the woman says, how much is that belt in the window? The one that says $2.95? And Crowley's like, $2.95. Oh, no. just a very dismissive, like...
Well, the crazy thing is, on that day, that belt should be 74 cents less because it's 25% off everything in the store.
That interchange I laughed out loud on that one, and her.
It was well done. I thought
she was so indignant about. Oh no! And I did love it when Peppy. I'm surprised nobody said this, but he was like, "Pardon me, Mister. Precisely what position do you hold at Matashek Company?"
Oh yes.
And he's like, "Well, I could describe myself as a contact man. I keep contact between Matashek Company and the customers on a bicycle." You mean an errand boy? Doctor, I did not call you a pill peddler.
You a pill pusher. Yeah. That was almost my top one, too. There's so many good ones.
There are a lot of great ones. Now, Meredith, we've come full circle here. On a scale of 5 stars here, half-star intervals, what would you give?
5.
Shop around the corner. 5.
5, definitely 5.
All 5. And Dustin, how about you? What are you going to do?
Meredith, last time you were here, you brought Enter the Dragon, and I was pretty harsh on it. And
off-brand for you and your love of martial arts movies.
we shouldn't really linger on it because now we're talking about The Shop Around the Corner, which is an automatic 5-star movie and a must rewatch every year. If I were the kind of guy to purchase movies, I would. And there's almost no flaw I can find in it. I might even go so far early to say this may be the best movie that I saw this year on our show.
Oh, wow.
And we covered The Matrix, which is
The Matrix.
probably among my favorite movies.
I can attest that Dustin loves The Matrix and has for a long time.
You can. Mm-hmm. This was occasionally, last year it was Laura, occasionally an old movie will just capture me. Mm-hmm. And even if I had never worked in a retail store, this movie would have captured me. It just is so special. I brought it up earlier. It seemed like a story that was new and novel, even though it's older than anything else we've covered. It was so easy for me to give it 5 stars. I didn't have to think about it. Thank you.
Oh, that's good to hear.
I actually wrote down when I began this at 4.5, but sometimes throughout the discussion, I have like the bandwidth of another star of up or down. And the more I talk about it, the more I realize it. And the more I talked about how authentic this is, and it does a workplace comedy while doing a very good romance story, and while doing something that is borderline difficult to do at all. At this point in time, falling in love with somebody's words and their mind, and actually doing it and creating a way that you can legitimately do it and doing it on an authentic way. I'm also joining you guys. I wrote down 4.5, but I've been talked into it. Maybe it's the Christmas spirit. Maybe it's the Maybe it's the near-death experience. Maybe it's Jimmy Stewart at Christmas time. But I'm going to join you guys in the 5-star parade. 15 stars for everybody.
Yeah, that's a lot of stars.
Wonderful choice.
Yeah, Meredith, you are not only a great guest, but you're also one of the creators. You helped give the show that logo that people are looking at on their phone. Where can they find more from your store, as well as other interesting and far more artistic versions of your work?
Yes, so you can find some Retro Movie Roundtable merchandise, sweatshirts, t-shirts, travel mugs on society6.com/Meredith Grey Robson. There are a lot of other designs on there as well. And also I have a lot of new work on meredithgrayrobson.com. So go there to check that out.
And Dustin, do you want to help me pick a movie for next time?
Yes, sir.
Let's keep the Christmas spirit rolling a little bit longer.
Yes, season's greetings. Let's go.
Yeah. Roll out the Yule logs. Let's do it. Option number 1, The Grinch from 2000. On the outskirts of Whoville lives a green, revenge-seeking Grinch who plans to ruin Christmas for all the citizens of the town. Option 2, A Christmas Story from 1983. In the 1940s, a boy named Ralphie Parker attempts to convince his parents, teacher, and Santa Claus that a Red Ryder Range 200-shot BB gun is really the perfect gift for Christmas. And option 3, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York from 1992. 1 year after Kevin McAllister was left at home, he had to defeat a pair of bumbling burglars. He accidentally finds himself stranded in New York City and has the same criminals not far behind him. So, Dustin, what'll it be?
Oh, this definitely has to be Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. A favorite of mine. I like it better than the first. I don't know if that's a spicy take, but I like it better than the first.
All right. Get those Utah logs. We're going to do Home Alone 2, Lost in New York from 1992. All right. Meredith, thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate you joining us.
Yes, it was great to be here, especially for this Christmas episode.
Thank you, all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. We invite you to reach out to us. We want to hear from you. So subscribe, rate, and review to us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Give us a like on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at @movie_retro. Follow us on Instagram. We're on email at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. And producing and providing this podcast is fun, but not free. So we invite you to support the show at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/retromovieroundtable. Any contributions are much appreciated and will go towards making the show better for you, the listeners. As always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other and watch more movies. Dustin?
The precogs are never wrong, but occasionally they do disagree.